Welcome to Get Real, How to Live a More Authentic Life, with psychologist and author of over 75 books, Dr. Barry Weinhold.
Welcome back, everyone, to Get Real, How to Live a More Authentic Life with Dr. Barry Weinhold. My name is Ashley Ross. Dr. Weinhold, how are you doing today?
Well, I'm doing pretty good. How was your Christmas?
Wonderful and surprising in all the ways that it usually is.
I'll bet your kids enjoyed it.
They always do. And I am kind of a big fan of Christmas, and it's not necessarily always about the gifts, but I just love the spirit and the joy that it brings. I love to surprise my loved ones and see their reactions.
It'd sure be nice if people could hang on to that for the rest of the year, wouldn't it?
Yeah, it definitely would. And, I think maybe that's a goal for next year, right? To try and be more intentional to create some more of those moments for us.
Yeah. It's always a challenge in our busy world to stop and appreciate and have gratitude for all the things, all the gifts that we get without having Christmas.
Right. And I think it's really odd to me that, at the end of the year, it seems like we are forced to slow down. And I wonder why we can't instill that for ourselves throughout the year. It's a struggle.
Right. Yeah.
So how was your Christmas?
It was quiet.
Yeah.
But my son was here and we had a good time. And my stepson came by and we had a dinner and enjoyed that.
That sounds nice. So that's a good question. What leftovers do you have to enjoy for this week?
Always plan to have. They're not leftovers; they're planovers. So you always plan certain things like extra turkey, extra stuffing, and things like that you can enjoy for the next week or so.
Definitely. I know that especially because the holidays tend to be very busy for us. We run around a lot and have to go to many houses. Having the ability to take home leftovers makes the next few days just so much better.
Yeah.
No one wants to cook.
We're going to end the year with this episode, and I'm saving the best for last.
What do you have for us?
Well, I was meditating one day and I started to think about all the different ways that people get themselves in trouble. And I thought, well, it's mostly because of their beliefs. Okay, well, let me see if I could come up with a list of, I started with thinking maybe I'd get 10 beliefs that get people in trouble. Well, I ended up with 20. And so that's what I'm going to share today. And then going into next year, I hope to be able to dig a little deeper into some of these and explain what you can do about them, how you can change these beliefs and live a more authentic life and not be saddled with. And I don't fault people, because where would we learn all these things? I mean, it's not taught in school because it's not on the test, and it should be taught in school. I mean, we should have at least a year or a semester course in personal psychology to help people understand why they do what they do and what to do about it. And so that's what we're going to start with: why you do what you do that gets you in trouble. And I came up with this 20 list. So I'd like to spend most of our session today going over the list. And the one that I found to be the most common one among the many people is the belief that when I grew up, I left all my problems behind me. Like somehow magically, uh, none of that's going to affect you for the rest of your life. Not. It's always going to affect, and for good reason, because it's the natural learning style of ours as human beings. Anything that we grew up with that was not finished will stay with us and will continue to show up in our lives until we finish it. It's just a very simple kind of law of psychology that you can't just uh, wish it away or you can't hope it away. It's just going to happen, and the more people get aware of that, and the more people begin to understand that what they're dealing with now isn't isn't what they think it is. That it's related to, there's a bleed through from something from their past that is showing up, that is knocking on your door saying, "Hey, pay attention. You got to finish this." And unfortunately, people don't often take that message and do what they need to do with it. They self-medicate. They try to calm down and get as relaxed as they can as quickly as possible because they don't want to feel those uncomfortable feelings they're feeling. So they do everything they can to avoid them, which means that they just keep going to come back more often. And so it's a self-defeating strategy that people have. But first thing is to recognize that anything you didn't get finished in childhood is you're gonna carry with you into adulthood. That's simply a simple fact, and it's gonna show up in your life probably at the most inconvenient and uncomfortable places and times. So get with it and learn when the opportunity presents itself what this is about and where does it come from. Number two is if I'm depressed or anxious, it means there's something fundamentally wrong with me. I've heard that one before from my clients, and I tell them there's absolutely nothing wrong with them. The only reason they're depressed or anxious is they don't know how to deal with what content is showing up in their feelings and in their lives, and they're confused, they're depressed, or they're doing things they're either going down to avoid or going up to avoid. It's two different ways that people use to avoid really dealing with the issues that are showing up in their lives. They either get depressed about them or they get anxious about them, and that doesn't mean there's anything wrong with them. So I'm really big on trying to help my clients get past what I call the shame barrier. And once I can break the shame barrier, then I can do much more effective work with people. The third one, when I became adult and I have children of my own, I will parent them different from the way I was parented. We talked about this in one of the earlier episodes. Is that frequently we think this is a belief that we really carry with us, and boy, I'll never do that to my kids if I'm a parent. And then in the heat of battle, we find ourselves doing the same thing, saying the same words sometimes, and it's a rude awakening. But so again, the reason is that you thought that what you learned from the way you were parented was good for you, and it turned out it probably wasn't. But you don't know that, and so then you pass it on thinking you're being a good parent. The fourth one is if I have a mental illness, this is because I inherited from my crazy relatives and had nothing to do with creating it. Well, first of all, most people, I wouldn't say you have a mental illness, you just have some problems. And so, but in terms of inheriting that, only about 10% of our behavior is inherited. So it's kind of hard to blame what you're experiencing on that 10% that you might have inherited from one of your ancestors. So it really requires you to look at the 90% of what's happened to you since you were born that's affecting you and causing you problems. All conflicts are bad, and it's best for all concerned to avoid or ignore them. Have you heard that one before? Yeah, I hear that a lot too. We're conflict avoidant as a culture, and we do everything we can to try to either not deal with them or avoid the people that cause the conflict we think cause us to feel in conflict, or whatever we do, or try to just ignore the conflict. None of those things work, and they get us in trouble every time. So all of these are things that get us in trouble and don't work. The sixth one, I've been victimized by other people and the government. Boy, is this really rampant today. And I mean, yeah, there are some people who legitimately have claims of being victimized. Minorities, for example, in our culture, have been victimized by the uh, the white privilege uh, policies and practices that have persisted. But to try to use the idea that you've been victimized by others, it's a way of trying to get your needs met in a way. Like if you can act like a victim, maybe someone will feel sorry for you and help you meet your needs. Uh, it's also can be politicized. I mean, the Democrats are the rescuers that to rescue the victims, and the Republicans are the persecutors to persecute the victims. And neither of those are effective in terms of helping people. So the number seven, when I get triggered by a memory that causes me discomfort, the best thing I can do is seek comfort and eliminate the feelings. I talked about that earlier in one of the other ones, but that's what people do, and they believe that that's going to help, and it doesn't help. And it simply just means that you're going to have to deal with. If you miss the opportunity to deal with whatever triggered you, it's going to show up again, and you'll get triggered again, and you'll get triggered again until you finally say, "Wait a minute, why am I getting triggered? Where's this come from? And what didn't get finished earlier in my life that keeps me getting triggered?" So that's the best way to deal with it. But people don't don't do that, and that gets them in trouble. When I have a problem, I can only think of two opposing solutions to the problem. This is kind of what I call primitive thinking, and I can developmentally show where it starts and why it's prevalent in adults because they didn't finish the whole process during the separation stage. There's a stage in that, our substage of the separation process, called the splitting stage, when either a mom, who, if she's available, she's good mom, and if she's not available when I need her, she's bad mom. And if that doesn't get resolved some way, it persists into adulthood, and people can only think. I mean, basically, it's part of 3D reality right now. Everything is presented as either it's this way or that way, and this. I often talk about that in terms of being caught on the horns of a dilemma, and each of these are the horns of a dilemma. Well, you notice there's a lot of space between the horns, and you need to find this in the middle sometimes. That's the real solution to any problem. So just inability to think about any kind of problem, any kind of solution to a problem, as just having two often imposing solutions is gets people in a lot of trouble. Number 11, men are tougher and they don't need to take care of themselves as much as women do. Have you heard that one? Yeah. Well, the statistics aren't very good because women live about 6 or 7 years longer than men. So it should be reversed. Women are tougher, and uh, men should spend more time taking care of themselves. And that's one of the reasons why there's a gap in life expectancy, is that men just are not as good as women in taking care of themselves. And that's simply stupid. I mean, to put it that pretty bluntly, because it's your life, and if you don't take care of yourself, you're going to pay for it. And a lot of men don't get that message until it's too late, unfortunately. Uh, Number 12 this year, a lot from conservatives sometimes and wealthy people. My success in life is solely the result of the hard work I put in to do it. You heard that one before? Yeah. I mean, that's also asinine because nobody is ever successful on their own. Nobody. I mean, it's just like it's denying the ultimate reality of your life that you got where you got because there were a lot of other people that helped you get there, and you had friends and colleagues and situations that other people put in your plate in your life that helped you. And so to try to deny that is like denying your whole reality. But it also is a way that people then can justify saying, I made it on my own. You need to make it on your own. I'm not going to help you. So it's a way of discounting the needs of others, the legitimate needs of others, and how we need to all work together and create a social safety net so that everybody can succeed. But people with that belief have a hard time with that one. And number 13, I've heard this from some of my clients. I had a perfect childhood. I got everything I always wanted from my parents. Boy, that's a tough one to overcome sometimes. But literally, there's no such thing as a perfect parent. There's no such thing as a perfect childhood. There's always something you didn't get, and always something that your parents were unable to provide for you. It's just part of human nature. Because probably it wasn't provided for them when they were a kid. So they didn't know how to do it. And so basically, it's really up to you to look for things that you still have to take care of because as an adult, then you're in charge of whatever you didn't get done and finished in childhood. You can't, and again, back to the one about either blaming your parents or growing up, that fits there as well. And then I'm having lots of problems. Well, this is the one that relates to it. I'm having lots of problems as a young adult, and it's all my parents' fault. That's the other one I get sometimes. If they had done this, if they had done that, I wouldn't be in the shape I'm in now. And I say, well, gee, I can't help you with that. If you want to grow up, I can help you, but that if you want to continue to blame your parents, I can't help you with that. So make a choice. If you want to work with me, you got to grow up. And you know what the first step is in growing up? Make your bed.
Really?
Yep.
Oh man.
I ask my clients, do you make your bed every morning when you get up? And they look at me like, what? Should I? Well, blah, 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 blah. That's the first step in autonomy.
Admittedly, I never
Admittedly.
make my bed. I never make my bed. Neither does my husband. Neither of us are bed makers. It
Well,
never gets made.
that's a holdover from childhood.
I'm sure it is.
In that way, you're still a child, expecting your parents to make your bed for you.
Yeah, they never made my bed either. Maybe that's the problem.
Right, that's the problem. Can't ever convince them to do that, can you, anymore? Let's see, where are we? My mother stayed at home with me, and I always had a secure bonding with her. Well, the research doesn't back that up. That even stay-at-home moms aren't able to sometimes provide secure bonding. Only about half the time that happens. Children who don't. This is another one that it was present. It's changing now, but children don't feel pain or any of the negative things that happen to them. So if I abuse my children, they will not remember it. I mean, that's a justification that a lot of child abusers use. It doesn't matter because they won't remember this. If I sexually abuse them, doesn't matter. They won't remember this because they forget everything and they leave it all behind when they grow up. It's kind of a subset of number one, but in the hands of an abuser, it's a deadly belief. Uh, it's much better and safer not to ask directly for help from others to meet my needs. I wish I had a nickel for everybody who said that to me. Not in those words directly, but that's what they typically will say is that they can't ask directly for anyone to help them meet their needs. And the only other option then is to basically manipulate them into meeting your needs. You have to do one of the family patterns, act help weak and helpless. That's one of the typical ways that people indirectly try to get their needs met, and they act like a victim. So that that belief, it first of all, it takes a lot of energy to try to manipulate others to get them to help you meet your needs. It's much easier just to ask directly. And I tell my clients, they ask me, well, how will I know I'm done, with therapy? How will I know I'm finished? I say, well, one of the markers that I would suggest is if you can ask for what you want from other people directly in such a way that they're delighted to give it to you, you're done. It's that important. And so as adults, sometimes we never saw that modeled maybe in our family. So another family pattern that gets passed on, that we don't meet our needs directly because we never saw anyone in our family meet their needs directly. And so but it has devastating consequences in making people miserable. My DNA was established when I was conceived, and so all I can do is live within the limits I was born with. You heard that one before? Yeah, I've heard people talk about that. And it was believed at one time that was true. That the DNA, when Crick and Watson discovered it in 1947, they basically said, this is what determines your behavior for the rest of your life. This puts the limits, puts the fences around what you can do and what you can't do. They were wrong, big time. The brain and the nervous system is highly mutable, highly changeable, and the DNA is even changeable. What they found out in further studying the DNA, that we don't even turn on all of our DNA until something happens to us that activates. So there's parts of our DNA that lie dormant the rest of our lives because we never activate it. I forget what percentage it is. It's not a very high percentage of our DNA that we use. So helping people to understand that that the limits are only in their mind, not in their DNA. And again, it's a mistaken belief that causes people to not think they can do anything to change. And number 19, I was betrayed by someone close to me, and now I don't want to be close to anyone. And that's a common belief that people have if they've been betrayed. But it certainly doesn't help resolve the issue. And certainly trying to wall yourself off and never be close to people isn't a solution to that. There's lots of other ways to handle betrayal, including forgiveness, which the word forgive means to give back. And so anything you took on in a betrayal that you thought was either your fault or misperceived, it's the other person's fault, and maybe it was yours. You have to give that back and take that back. And that's what forgiveness is all about. And then the last one, oh my, this is so big. I have to please others if I want them to like me, even if I have to say and do things I don't believe. How many times you heard that one? Or a version thereof?
A lot. That one I am very aware of myself.
Yeah, I work a lot with my clients about this one. I've developed, in fact, I should have probably put it up here, but I will next year when I talk about that one, is I have a self-assessment tools that says, are you a people pleaser? And there's 30 items, and you answer them as honestly as you can, and that tells you how much of a people pleaser you are. And I have people who answer basically yes on 20 out of the 30. So it's very common, and it's part of why people have trouble living authentic lives,
Yeah.
and why they can't get real. Is
Yeah.
that they're so busy are so worried about pleasing other people and making sure that other people like them. And actually, I like people who are authentic and honest rather than are trying to tell me things that they think I will want to hear, so I like them. I often never. And actually, when you do that to others, there's a feeling in your body that isn't right.
Mm-hmm.
And when you tell the truth and are authentic, there's another feeling that really feels so much better.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll be talking a lot about that one next year when we dig into these more deeply. But this is kind of a negative way to end the year, but a realistic way. These are things that I see get in the way of being able to be authentic in your lives in any way, and also ways that keep your psychological intelligence low. And so my goal is to help increase the psychological intelligence of my audience, so that they're able to basically eventually do their own therapy. They don't have to go to a therapist. I mean, I think that a lot of the things that I'm going to be teaching are things that don't require you to go to a therapist to learn. You can learn them here in the podcast, and it's all free. So I'm looking
That's
forward
very exciting.
to 2023 and imparting some of that information to people, and raising the psychological intelligence of as many people as I can. That's my goal for 2023.
I think it's going to be great. We'll get to learn a lot more about the book and get to focus on and break apart some of those things. So I can't wait to learn on a lot about what you've been working on. This has been wonderful so far. I think it's a great way to end the year to bring about more awareness for everyone of some of the things that they might have been doing. So thank you so much, Dr. Barry.
Okay, thank you, Ashley, for helping have me and us have a very successful podcast, and our audience is growing, thank goodness. More and more people are signing on and finding out about us, and so next year we're going to make an even bigger push to expand the podcast so more and more people can benefit from what we're learning here.
Wonderful. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it. Until next time, we'll see you next year.
Right. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.
For more information, please visit the Colorado Institute for Conflict Resolution and Creative Leadership at CICRCL.org or click the link in the show notes.